I never thought my uncle was watching me, and I never imagined I would find myself in such an awkward and uncomfortable situation. It was one of those lazy afternoons, the house was quiet, and I had some time to myself, which was a rare treat. My uncle had come to visit us for a few days, and while I was happy to see him, I didn't expect him to be around at that moment. I thought he had gone out, probably to the local market to buy some fruits and vegetables or to visit a friend nearby. That's why I felt safe in the privacy of my room, enjoying the peace and quiet all by myself. I was lost in my thoughts, thinking about what I wanted to do next. Maybe I would read a book or play with some toys. The possibilities felt endless, and I was excited to spend the afternoon doing something fun. Little did I know, everything was about to change in a way I never expected. I had heard people talk about growing up, but I never really thought about what it would feel like. Now, everything seemed new. My skin felt softer, and certain parts of me seemed to be growing faster than others. It was like my body was telling me things I didn't yet understand, and my curiosity kept growing along with it. I wanted to know more, to explore these changes that were happening. So, that day, as I lay on my bed, I started touching my arm, feeling how smooth it was. It seemed harmless, just a little curiosity. But then, my hand moved, almost on its own, to other parts of my body. I wasn't thinking too much about what I was doing, it was just a natural, quiet moment with myself. My fingertips brushed against places I hadn't really paid attention to before, and I felt a tingle. It was an odd but exciting feeling, and I kept going, wondering why it made me feel that way. As I touched my growing body, the feelings became stronger. I didn't fully understand what was happening, but it felt nice, and I couldn't stop. I was in my own space, enjoying the soft, gentle touches. My heart was beating a little faster, but it didn't feel wrong. It just felt different. I didn't know then that exploring my own body like this might be something I should think twice about. I didn't even know that someone else might be watching. I closed my eyes, sinking deeper into the warm, peaceful feeling of being alone with myself. I thought I was safe. I thought no one was around. The house was quiet, and I was certain that I was all by myself. I let my mind drift, lost in the sensations. I didn't hear any footsteps or the creak of the door. I didn't know that my uncle might be standing nearby, watching me from the shadows. The thought never crossed my mind. For a while, it was just me, exploring, learning about my body in a way I hadn't done before. I didn't think about whether it was right or wrong, because I didn't even know enough to ask those questions yet. It was just me, my thoughts, and the strange new feelings that were filling my body. But I had no idea that in those private moments, when I thought no one was around, my uncle was secretly watching me. I didn't know he had been standing there, his eyes on me, seeing everything I had been doing. I thought I was all alone. I didn't even imagine that someone could be spying on me, especially my own uncle. I was completely lost in my own little world, unaware of anything happening outside my room. But then, something happened that sent a chill down my spine. I heard a creak. The sound was soft, but in the silence of the house, it was loud enough to make my heart jump. My eyes flew open, and for a split second, I froze, not knowing what to do. My body reacted before my mind could catch up. I grabbed the blanket and quickly pulled it over myself, trying to hide. My heart was racing so fast it felt like it might burst out of my chest. I couldn't breathe. I lay there, my whole body tense, and I slowly looked towards the door, terrified of what I might see. And there he was. My uncle. Standing at the door, staring at me. His eyes were wide, and his face looked strange, almost frozen. He wasn't saying anything, just staring at me in a way that made me feel really uncomfortable. My skin tingled, and not in a good way. It was like the air in the room suddenly became thick, and I felt trapped under his gaze. Why was he looking at me like that? How long had he been standing there? The questions swirled around in my head, but I couldn't find any answers. All I knew was that I felt exposed, embarrassed, and scared all at the same time. My uncle, someone I thought I could trust, had seen me in a way no one was ever supposed to see. "Uncle," I gasped, trying to act like everything was fine, even though my heart was pounding, and my hands were shaking. I tried to make my voice sound normal, but I could hear the tremble in it, and I knew he could too. I had been caught, and there was no hiding it. My face felt hot, and my mind was spinning, trying to figure out what to do next. But my uncle didn't say anything. He just stood there, staring at me with this weird, unsettling look on his face. His eyes were locked on me, and it made me feel so uncomfortable, like I had done something terrible. I could feel my stomach twisting, and I couldn't stop wondering, why is he standing there? How long had he been watching me? The thought made me feel sick inside. My mind was filled with questions, but no answers came. Why are you looking at me like that? I asked, my voice barely a whisper, too scared to speak any louder. I felt so embarrassed, and at the same time, I was getting angry. Why was he watching me like this? Didn't he know it was wrong? I thought he was supposed to be someone I could trust, but now I felt betrayed. What kind of person stands there, spying on someone? You shouldn't be doing that, he finally said, but his voice wasn't normal either. It was low, almost a whisper, and there was something strange in it. I couldn't tell if it was shame, guilt, or something else that I didn't even want to think about. His words felt heavy, like they were meant to scold me, but there was something darker in his tone, something that made my skin crawl. I couldn't look him in the eye anymore. My head was spinning, my emotions bouncing between shame, fear, and anger. Why didn't he leave? Why didn't he say anything sooner? Why was he even watching me in the first place? I just wanted the ground to swallow me up so I didn't have to face him anymore. I felt so small, so exposed, and I didn't know what to do next. He just stood there, not moving at all, his eyes still fixed on me. That's when the real fear hit me. My heart started beating even faster, and I could feel my whole body tense up. What was he going to do? The question kept echoing in my mind, and I felt trapped. It was like being a small animal caught by a bigger, scarier one, with nowhere to run. I didn't know what to do or say, and I couldn't think straight. For as long as I could remember, I had always seen my uncle as part of the family. He was someone I thought I could trust, someone who was supposed to look out for me. But in that moment, standing there, staring at me like that, he didn't feel like the same person anymore. He felt like a stranger, someone I didn't know, and it made me feel even more scared. I had never seen him like this, and I didn't like it at all. I wanted to say something, to make him stop looking at me like that, but the words wouldn't come. All I could do was lie there, frozen, wishing this whole thing wasn't happening. My uncle gently closed the door behind him, the soft click of the lock making me feel even more trapped. He didn't leave. Instead, he stepped further into the room and slowly sat down on the edge of the bed. My heart was still racing, and I didn't know what he was going to do next. I watched him carefully, my eyes wide and full of questions. He looked at me for a moment, his face calm, like nothing strange had just happened. We were both silent, just staring at each other, and I wasn't sure what to say. My mind was still spinning from everything. Then, finally, he spoke. "You've grown into a beautiful young lady," he said softly. "I was just admiring you." His words felt strange at first, but part of me wanted to believe him. Hearing someone say I was beautiful made me feel good, even though everything else felt so confusing. His voice was calm, and the way he said it almost made me feel safe, like he wasn't upset with me for what had just happened. For a moment, the tension in the room seemed to melt away. I didn't feel as scared anymore, and the warmth of his words made me feel like maybe everything would be okay. But deep down, I still felt a little unsure. Something about the whole situation didn't seem right, but I pushed those thoughts away, wanting to believe that I was safe. As he sat there, my body started to relax. The fear I had felt earlier was slowly fading away, and I began to feel more at ease. Then my uncle leaned in a little closer and asked me quietly, "Do you think we should have some fun?" His words hung in the air, and for a moment, I didn't know what to think. My mind was confused, but my body reacted differently. There was a strange feeling inside me, like a temptation pulling me in, and I didn't understand it. My body felt warm, and it seemed like it was willing to give in, even though my thoughts were spinning with confusion. It was as if my body was responding to him, reacting in a way I hadn't expected. I couldn't explain it, but the emotions were there, strong and powerful, drawing me toward my uncle. It didn't make sense, And yet, I found myself tempted to follow what he was suggesting. I had been exploring my body on my own, feeling things I didn't fully understand. But when my uncle came in, everything changed. This time, he was here, watching me, and the thought crossed my mind, maybe if someone else was touching me, it would feel even better. That strange idea made me feel confused, but at the same time, it tempted me. Without really thinking it through, I gave my uncle a clue. I didn't say anything, but my actions spoke for me. It was like I was silently telling him I was willing to let him join me. I wasn't sure why I did it, but in that moment, it felt like I wanted to see what it would be like with someone else. My uncle gently lifted the blanket, and I could see his eyes widen in surprise as he took in how much I had grown. It felt like time had flown by, and I was no longer that little kid he used to play with. A warm smile spread across his face, and he exclaimed, "Wow, you've really grown up." His words filled me with a mix of emotions. It was nice to hear that he noticed the changes in me. He gently placed his hand on my shoulder, and in that moment, I could feel his pride and happiness. It was a comforting gesture, and it made me feel special. We shared a tender moment together, and I could sense a deep connection between us. It felt like we were both acknowledging how much I had changed and how important our bond was. My uncle and I had a moment that felt strange and exciting. He gently took off our clothes, and we looked at each other. I felt nervous but also ready for what was about to happen. I could feel his warmth next to me, and my heart was racing. When we finally came together, it felt like something special was beginning. It was as if a magical moment had arrived just for us. We moved slowly, like dancers in a beautiful story, learning about each other in a way we had never done before. My heart raced with excitement, and I felt butterflies in my stomach, like when you're about to go on a fun adventure. As we explored, it was like discovering a new world. We were curious, and every touch felt like a gentle spark, lighting up our hearts. It was a little scary, but also warm and comforting, like wrapping yourself in a soft blanket on a chilly day. In that moment, nothing else in the world mattered. The worries and noises around us faded away, and it was just us two, side by side, feeling a deep connection. We shared smiles and whispers, feeling like we were in our own secret place where only we belonged. It was a moment we would always remember, a time when everything felt right and full of love. After a while, we knew we had to leave the room. We took a deep breath and got dressed, trying to act like nothing had happened. We looked at each other and smiled, keeping our secret safe. It felt like a little adventure we had shared, and we both understood that it was something special. When we walked out of the room, everything felt normal again. We talked and laughed like we always did, making silly jokes and teasing each other. It was as if the moment was just a dream, but we both knew it was real. From that day on, we carried our secret with us, something that made our bond even stronger. We knew we could trust each other with anything, and that made our friendship feel extra special. No matter what happened, we would always have that moment to remember, hidden away like a treasure in our hearts.